Evening all, welcome back to Space Engineers. Right, I've got a bit of a cold today, so if I cough, I apologise. Anyway, playing this wonderful game. The introduction of planets is an absolute masterstroke, a genius move. Loving it, and I'm going to show you. So in the last video we crashed. It pretty much wrecked the bottom of the ship, so in this one we're going to show a bit of repairing it, but stick around because we're going to build something quite interesting. Now, if ever there has been a game that is a time sink on my time, it's been Dust, and Dust 514, and it's been this game, because I just sat a few weekends ago and I just sat and played this game all Sunday. And I had Game of Thrones on my TV, and I just sat and watched this, kind of played this game, and while watching that, and it was pure joy. I think gaming is such a wonderful thing to do in accompaniment to something else, so listening to music or something like that. So as you can see, repairing this beast of a ship is not an easy task. Now, the first thing I obviously did was, and this is actually this is probably like an hour in, so I actually played for an hour before I started doing a lot of what you're seeing here, is because I was learning actually what the hydrogen thrusters were, because they are kind of new. I realised that my turrets weren't online, so you see we just switched the turrets back on. Thank God they survived, by the way, because obviously meteorites and such are still a problem. But I've got to admit, I'm loving it, and I'm just learning so much more about the game. Like, I didn't realise hydrogen fuel had to be in your cargo, your inventory, otherwise your jetpack doesn't work. Now, the thing is, this is a really key point. Once the jetpack stopped working, this game became bloody impossible to play. So I love that feeling of, let me explain what I did. The ship has rocked onto one side, and as I started to kind of repair it, my jetpack gave out, and actually I couldn't get back into the ship. So I was in this kind of position where there wasn't really much I could do other than build a little ramp and then try and kind of, do a running jump and get on the ship. I know it sounds so silly, but it was brilliant. I love the fact that that's a thing. So yeah, Space Engineers, this is a hell of a game. If you're not playing this, you're missing out. So, what are our plans with this mighty SquadB flagship? Well, to be honest, it's kind of banged up and it's kind of broken. So, my plan is to still get it back off the ground. I think I went and looked at the patch videos, and I see that hydrogen basically is something you have to get from ice, obviously, and it's something that you have to have as a routed channel of fuel to a hydrogen engine. So these are things that I have learned. It only took about an hour to learn that, which is pretty abysmal. But what I've learned from this is what I basically need to do now is to find ice, to mine it somehow, and then start to build hydrogen engines to take the ship off the planet. Now, the issue I do have, oh god, as I look at that, is you need quite a lot of hydrogen engines to take off. So my initial thought was to build some form of scouter drone, but I didn't. I built this. I know there's you're probably noticing there's a bit of gameplay that's been missed there. It took me about another hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to build that, because I made so many mistakes with it. But this is it. I've cut to the chase. And even now, when I look at this, I realise actually it's going to change a lot more, because I've still got thrusters on here when I don't really need thrusters. I've got an oxygen intake when I don't need that. So be gentle, be gentle. I'm learning. It took me ages to figure this stuff out as it was. But what I have now is basically an atmospheric kind of utility vehicle that I can start to use. Now, I must admit, this blew my mind when I started to use it. And you'll see in a minute we actually figure out how to take off and put... I mean, literally, I couldn't even figure out how to fuel the thing. I mean, you're probably not watching this channel for, kind of elite PvP or elite Space Engineers content. It's not. It's a bumbling English idiot trying to figure out how to play a game. But, look, we did get it fueled. And the feeling, and again, I know I keep coming back to feelings like some kind of traditional old song, but the feeling of finally being on a planet in this game, in a vehicle that I've built, that I'm now entrusting my life to fly and go and find, ice, was just unbelievable. I really do want to stress that point. This game is excellent, and it's won, I think it was an indie game of the year again, or maybe for the first time, I'm not sure, but it's won that award, and it's just worth it. If this is one game that I advise you to buy, it's this, because it's just so good. It is a wonderful distraction from the kind of destruction you have in a lot of first-person shooters and things like that. When you want to cleanse your palate, you come and play a game like this. And just look, roaming around this this planet, it's a nice planet, and you can see, you know, there's plenty of resources here. As you can see, this is the gully that the ship had crashed into. It's beautiful, isn't it? And I know I'm getting a bit weepy now, but it does look good. And I think when you see the ship embedded there, I don't know, there's something about that that invokes kind of 70s sci-fi films. If you know what I'm talking about, post in the comments. But I adore this game, and I think it really has been just a wonderful, wonderful accompaniment to the other kind of games that we play that are very kind of fast-paced, aggressive kind of games. This one just is such a fun, relaxing, simple game. So, with all of that gushy bollocks out of the way, one of the things I learned here, so if you look down to the right there, you see there's a patch of ground there that was darker than the rest. So obviously I've learned that that's where your materials are, your resources are there. So that means there's general kind of materials that you could go and mine. So eventually we'll have to look at some form of mining rig that we maybe use. Now, those of you who've watched the series, you'll probably remember I did have a kind of planetary or moon-based asteroid landing capable refinery rig or gantry. So I want to build something like that, but we won't do that yet. The primary thing to do at the moment is, with all of the hydrogen obviously being an issue and so on, and look at that, I think my engine's just exploded. I think it's because I'm being shot by the cannons on the ship. So post in the comments to tell me what I'm doing wrong now, because every time I seem to get close, it seems to give me a problem. No, maybe not. If I recall rightly, I think it was because thruster damage is on, and I think that was why the engines are kind of suffering a bit. But you know, the first priority I think now is to get oxygen, because oxygen is going to be something that you need. Maybe I've got this wrong, but you know, whenever I got into the cockpit of this thing, before I had oxygen in the tanks, I would suffocate. I must be doing something wrong. It must be because I'm not doing an obvious thing. So post in the comments and tell me what I'm doing wrong there. I would have thought that on a planet with a high oxygen content, you would have just needed to open the vent or something. So with that kind of with the air vent, you know the one I'm talking about, you would have the ability to reverse that, so it takes air into the tanks that then feeds the thing. Tell me if I've got that right, because I tried it and it just wasn't working. So I don't know. And then when I got into it one time, it was working. So I must have done something right or wrong, or I don't know what happened. But as you can see, you know, the engines are obviously a little bit tweaky, but generally it's kind of working. I think it was the thruster damage, and I know I don't need those great big thrusters underneath it. I didn't know. I wasted an awful lot of time and resources doing them, but there we go. So the first thing to do with this thing now is to start to look at maybe getting some ice. So my immediate response, my immediate thought was, well, ice is surely foundable, if that's even a word, and the high point. So I thought, well, let's go to one of the kind of mountains, and let's see what's basically going on there. Look at this thing, it takes off, oh my god, express elevator to heaven, maybe. And it's just brilliant, I love it so much. And I thought, well, let's just fly to some of the mountains. So as you can see in the distance there's some mountains, you know, and if you kind of, as we keep kind of, tracking around, you can see that there's ones with snow. So you would assume that you could maybe mine snow. I know I probably got this bit wrong, but there we go. I've got cannons just because I don't know if I need them or not. Again, I've not set it to be environmental hostility is on, if that makes sense. But I always thought that I'd be attacked by pirates for some reason. Maybe I've got that a bit wrong as well. But I've not been attacked so far. The only thing I've had is meteorites. So, yeah. I thought there would be robot dogs and spider crabs and things like that, but I could well be wrong. But, I mean, just so far with what this game is showing me from having crash landed on a planet and trying to survive, I give this absolute thumbs up. It's 10 out of 10. Because, I've had to salvage bits of the ship. I've had to scrap bits of the ship. I've had to recycle bits of the ship to make this. And now I'm kind of in this position where I actually have a bit of mobility on the planet. And now I'm able to go and explore. Now, if that isn't survival mechanics, I don't know what is. And I think with a lot of games coming that are going to kind of, nibble at the heels of space engineers, things like Planet Nomads and what was the other one I saw? I forget the name of it, but there's quite a few coming that seem to be kind of nipping at the heels of these kind of games, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do a bit differently. because I think Space Engineers, it does still have a few things wrong with it, but it is such a fun, enjoyable game to play, and I think you can't go wrong with games like this where, you know, there's such a low price to get into the game, and then really there's such a kind of, there's a huge amount of stuff to do. So for example, in this map I'm in right now, there's multiple planets as we quick forward into the snowy Alps. There's multiple planets, so once we've got this ability to get the flagship off the ground, my plan and my ultimate goal is basically to have the flagship with multiple landing gear, multiple hydrogen engines, and it has the ability to enter the atmosphere and land. Now I know it's a huge ship, so it's not as big as I've seen, but it's huge, it's heavy. So that might be a problem, but I'm really excited to see if it's possible. So just having that ability to go literally from, you know, space to planet to land to collect resources, to have ships like this then undock and be your kind of, you know, whizzing about in the air, having drones that just basically are self-powering, kind of, you know, charging defense platforms that you press a button and they just fly up to like a defense position, and as long as they've got power they'll just hover there. It's so exciting, it really is, and I'm kind of hoping there's a little bit more PvE element in it as well. So I know there's pirates, but I haven't seen them. So, you know, post in the comments what I'm doing wrong maybe there, or maybe right, because I think right now if they had attacked me I'd have had a problem, but there we go. So I thought, well, let's go and have a look. Let's go and see what snow is like in these kind of high up area places, and then I realised I didn't have my drill on me because I'm a noob. But what can you do? But I think it's really cool that you have this kind of ability to just go anywhere on the planet and experience something, and it's really well done. I know obviously, you know, things like the trees and that look a bit kind of samey, but you don't mind it too much. I think the fact that it's all completely randomly generated, if you saw the game as it looks like right now, you'd be probably quite impressed with it anyway. So, you know, for me, massive thumbs up, and you know, I actually am really excited to kind of get the ship back on its like kind of feet, if that makes sense. Get it so that you can go interstellar again, if you like, and then basically go and land it on something like a desert world and see what's going on in the desert world. I love that thought that you basically have this ship that is truly able to land and go anywhere. Now, obviously, if the SquadB flagship's too heavy, we're going to have to cut some of the waste away, but that's just going to be the way it goes. I don't think there's a lot I can do about that. There's a lot of areas in the SquadB flagship that actually I'm never really going to use now. I think I made it as big as it is. There you go, interesting point. You've got these boulders of materials there, so it's, yeah, it's pretty cool. But I made the SquadB flagship a little too big for really what it was or what it was needed. And I think that's probably something that I may have to address. But here we go. So this looks like you're coming down into kind of like a frozen lake, and you can see there's kind of dark patches there. Thankfully, that is ice. So, you know, thank God, because I need the ice. I need oxygen and I need hydrogen for my pack. So really liking that. Look at the bloom. Look at the bloom. It's very nice, isn't it? But I think generally I'm just blown away by this game. I think if you are tempted with it and if you've watched a few of these videos, go and get it. And I think if you're a Dust player who's obviously contemplating moving to PC now, this has to be one of the games that you get, because you will have fun with it. It is exceptional fun. And there we go, look, our detector's picking up various things. We've got nickel, magnesium, ice, which is the important bit. Our engines are already back on fire again, which is not good. But look at this feeling of actually touching down on a ice glacier plate. Oh my God, this feels good. This feels so good. Switching the engines off, having a walk around. This is a unique selling point of the game, and I think this is going to be really interesting to see how this develops further. It is such an excellent game. It's well developed, it's well supported, and I can just only see it getting better and better. And, you know, just that ability to go and build a base on the ground and have then space stations orbiting. You can have satellites in geosynchronous orbit. There is just so much you can do with it, and I'm really, really, really loving it. I'm blown away by it. Look at that. I never thought in Space Engineers I'd see a vista like that. This could be a fjord, salt fish infested fjord, but it's just looks great, doesn't it? I mean, I can't knock it. I really can't. When I heard they were going to do planets, I was a bit skeptical. I was a bit worried, if I'm honest, that they may not have got they may not get it right. Only because I was thinking of things like StarMade. So if you don't remember StarMade, that was where planets were kind of like a disc, and then as you approached them, it was just a disc of blocks, and it just didn't really work. It wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't like it, but when I heard this was going to, do planets, my immediate thought was, well, if they get that right, all of a sudden you've got a game that is just huge. So you could have kind of, an entire game existence on the ground, building fortresses, fighting battles, and so on. But you can then also go all the way up into space and fight from above. You can then basically, drop. You could build literally, missile bombs from orbit that just drop and aim and target on the ground. It is so well done. I really cannot stress how impressive this game is. And I think when you certainly start to look at what they're trying to do with it in terms of where they're going, is going to be just getting better. So, slight problem, I'm not entirely sure where my home ship is, so this created an interesting moment again when I got lost. And let me tell you why this is quite key, because when I played Minecraft, one of the nice things about Minecraft is that you actually can get lost. I lost numerous bases just wandering off into the distance and never really knowing where I was. And I probably flew about for about 20-30 minutes then trying to find where my base was. And it was only because, weirdly enough, I actually had something in orbit, which I won't spoil it, but there's something in orbit above this point which helped me navigate back to it, and here we are, we're back in the gully. And I just think it's so well done, I really do, and I'm just so impressed with what they've done with it. So there we go. We are going to continue. So this, again, I know a lot of people are maybe new to this series, so let me just commit to you. Oh, look at that, my engines have gone. That's not a good place to be. My main engines have given up. Might be a problem here, but I think there's definitely going to be we're committing to this game for a long time now. We are loving it, and I think really we're going to start looking at maybe what more we should be doing. So I think some kind of epic base spanning the two things there with like a suspended bridge style base, maybe that would be pretty sweet, wouldn't it? I don't know if it's possible, but hey, we'll give it a go. And I think just getting that ability to, get this getting this flagship off the ground is just going to be awesome. I cannot wait to do it. And it's a lot of work. There's a lot of kind of resource gathering, but I tell you what, it's going to be an absolute blast to do. So hopefully you agree. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. Join us for more fun next time.